could you possibly be the jerk for teaching a 12-year-old how to do laundry? We'll get to that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for reporting the girls who vandalized the letters my girlfriend wrote to me? Context, my girlfriend has cancer and I fear she has less time left. Her conditions got worse with time and she got dropped out of high school for a full-time watch at a hospital. She's at her hometown and I can't visit her. She wrote me a couple of letters before her conditions got critical and I obviously replied back. I even have a video of her opening my letters with joy on her face. I kept these letters in my school bag and only a few good friends of mine knew about it. This bully kid got to know about it and he announced it out loud in class. I absolutely did not want that. He wasn't that big of a jerk, he just teased me, but some got curious. During a break, I left my bag in class and went outside with my friends. Only the girls remained in the class. I came back sometime later to see the letters in half. It honestly hurts. According to them, they were curious and while trying to read it together, they started snatching them and accidentally tore this. I was not having this. First, they opened my bag without permission, and then this. I went straight to the principal and reported against them. It's been 2 days and today I got to know that the girls responsible are getting suspended for a week. Some friends completely supported it and some said that it was a bit too much over letters. They think it's an overreaction. Am I the jerk? 100% not the jerk. Whoever thinks this is an overreaction is simply clueless. In my opinion, am I wrong? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for making fun of my sister's sister-in-law? I, female, 27, have a sister, Annie, 24-year-old female. She married Tom, 25-year-old, last year. Tom has a sister, Lily, 23 years old. Lily is a bully. I've met her a handful of times, and she's always making fun of Annie, who's a little fat. Lily's always telling that bad pig jokes, and she even gave Annie a nickname, Pygmy. I've complained to Tom and Tom's mom that Lily's jokes weren't funny and she should stop, but she's always said that she was just joking. I told Annie that she should return the jokes to Lily, but she can never think of anything to say. Last year, I was invited to Tom's family's Christmas party. Everything was fine until Lily said something like, "Oh God, Annie, you've already eaten so much. At this pace, you'll stop being pygmy to become whale-knee." And she laughed with the children at the party. I was furious, and Annie and Tom gave a fake laugh and said that Annie was 4 months pregnant. When we were congratulating them, Lily said, "Wow, at least now you can excuse yourself when people see you eating like a pig." I got furious again, but Annie asked me to just let it go, but I know how much that jokes hurt her. So I went back to having a talk with Tom and his mother about why Lily's teasing had to stop. Well, this weekend was Annie's baby shower. We were all having a good time until Lily told another joke about how fat Annie had gotten. I had enough, so I laughed so loud to attract attention and said, "Oh Lily, you're so funny," especially when you finish your jokes with that ugly pig laugh. Sometimes I think people laugh more at your laugh than at your joke. Lily got super serious and she told me it wasn't funny, to which I said, "Come on, it's a joke," and imitated her laugh. The kids at the party laughed too, and Lily ran away while she cried. Tom's mother scolded me for the joke, and I asked her why Lily's jokes were funny but mine weren't, if they both had a pig joke in it, and her mother couldn't answer me. I told her that every time I heard Lily tell a joke about Annie, I would return the joke. Annie told me that I shouldn't have done that, but I could see her hold back her laughter along with the other guests. But I'm tired of Annie being walked over. They've told me that since I'm older than Lily, I should behave better. So am I the jerk for making fun of Lily? I love that at least somebody out here is looking out for Annie. They married Tom and Tom doesn't see a problem here? I think Tom and Tom's mother have been brainwashed a little bit to be conditioned to just accepting that line of joke/comedy from Lily. I mean, how else can she literally call somebody a pig, cackle about it, and have everybody else be like, "Oh, that's just, it's just a joke." This next story is, am I the jerk for not wanting to sell my sister's horse? My 21-year-old male, sister Layla, 21-year-old female, has owned her horse since she was 7 years old. A little over 3 years ago, my sister had an accident in a sport which landed her in a coma. Layla's horse is boarded about a 4-hour drive from where I and most of my family live. My older brother, Jacob, 29-year-old male, and his mom live less than an hour away from the stable. The horse is fully trained and Layla used to compete with him. The arrangement has always been that most of the horse's expenses would be paid for by Jacob's mom. Our dad isn't in the picture for any of us, as well as my mom and stepdad. After Layla's accident, Jacob started contributing financially to the horse's needs and even started riding him. Last week, my parents asked me if we could have a talk. When I got to my parents' house, my best friend and Layla's long-term boyfriend, Thomas, 21-year-old male, was also there, and they didn't know why he was called over either. My parents pretty bluntly told the both of us that they were going to sell Layla's horse, because it's unlikely that she'll ever wake up again, and it's not reasonable to keep putting money into the animal. I asked if they'd spoken to Jacob or his mom about this, since they're the horse's primary caretakers, and have put a fair amount of money in as well. My parents said that they hadn't spoken to Jacob or his mom, and they shouldn't have to, because it's Layla's horse and they're her parents. Thomas disagreed with this and offered to contribute financially to the horse, as well as driving up to take care of him. If and when Layla does wake up, she's going to want to know her horse is okay. I agreed with Thomas and put out the same offer. My parents told the both of us that we're not thinking clearly and it's better for everyone if the horse is just sold. This decision didn't sit right with me, so I called Jacob and asked what he thought about the matter. Jacob wants to keep the horse, and so does his mother. And his mom has said that she'll fully pay for the horse's expenses by herself if it comes to it. My parents told Jacob that he just needs to get over it because it's not his choice and hung up on him. Once the call had ended, my parents said that I was completely wrong for calling Jacob for his opinion, and that they're disappointed in both Thomas and I for even considering keeping the horse. Both my parents are upset now, they won't answer my calls, and have also seemed to cut contact with Thomas, who was like a son to them. Am I the jerk for going against my parents on wanting to sell my sister's horse and asking my brother his opinion on it? I just hope for everybody's sake here, considering how many people do not want to give up the horse, I hope they all can band together and at least afford maybe purchasing the horse outright. I don't think OP's the jerk because there's a lot more than just her parents that are factoring in to really whether it's a morally okay thing to sell the horse. Our next story is, am I the jerk for stepping away from gift giving with my stepchildren? I, 50-year-old female, have been in a relationship with my husband, 52-year-old male, for several years. We've been married a year, and there's been many gift-giving situations throughout. I've always been the one to make things happen. Someone wants something, I figure out how to get it done. I've always been involved in the gift selection process for his children, who are both in their mid to late 20s, 1-year-old male and 1-year-old female. On my side of the family, we've never done the step words, and as it pertains to them, it's always been the kids or our kids. I've used it in this title in case you feel it's pertinent. So here's my issue. In each of these instances, I don't get a thank you. I barely get a vague acknowledgement. I did get an awkward, thanks, I guess, on one birthday. Gift giving has mostly been initiated or pre-planned by me. I usually enjoy it. I know it's not that the gifts have not been good gifts. I've overheard on more than one occasion, one or both of them bragging about what their dad got them and how he's really stepped up his gift-giving game these days. It's hurtful. There's a lot of real estate between a hearty pat on the back and the disrespect I feel. Something in the middle would be nice. I pay attention throughout the year to what they state their current interests are, an item they drool over, causes they like to support, etc., and what I would give for just a look me in the eye thank you sometimes. Most recently, one had a baby shower and there were multiple tables full of gifts from 55 different people. 54 of them got a thank you. Guess who didn't? The slight was so obvious that another woman turned around, laughed and said, "They didn't say it, so I will. Thank you." Yeah, not funny, but I'll play it off. It's all good, haha, pregnancy brain. I get excited about gift giving and how much they'll love something, and I just end up feeling lousy afterwards. Honestly, now that I'm typing this out, I realize that they know proper etiquette, it's really that they just don't think it applies to me for some reason. So, am I the jerk for telling their dad that I will never disapprove of any money he wants us to spend on anything he wants to give to his children? I'm just no longer comfortable putting myself in that position when there's so little or no appreciation? I'll try to thicken my skin over this, and I'm hopeful that eventually I'll resume my current level of active participation, but for now it's okay to step back, right? I completely understand where OP's going from. I think they're completely in the right here if they want to go forward with what they feel comfortable with. Although I would like to see them just straight up call them out on it and question, and not in like an accusatory way, but just, after all these years, you work hard to get them nice gifts. You just wonder why they never thank you for anything. You don't have to come at them in a way that is hostile or seems entitled. Over these years, a thank you would have really meant a lot to me. I just don't understand why they don't think it applies to you, especially as they grew up. Our next story is, am I the jerk for getting my son DNA tested? A little bit of backstory. I was with my ex for 7 years and we have 3 kids. Before we met, he had an ex who got pregnant very early in their relationship. From what he told me, he was with her throughout the pregnancy. After the birth, he went to get a drink and she contacted the police, claimed he was drunk, and had him removed and hasn't had contact since. My ex is the kind of person who would lie, so don't fully believe this. A few years ago, the kid needed a place to go, and my ex refused to get a DNA test to prove he was the father and wouldn't take him in. When I tried to talk to him about it, he told me to drop it. Fast forward to yesterday and I find a business card for someone who wanted me to call them. Turns out, they want to test my kid to see if they're related since my ex is still refusing a DNA test. I told her I would do it. Now I'm wondering if I'm a crappy person for this? Am I the jerk for agreeing to give my kid a DNA test? If this guy is just being a lousy, deadbeat father and he's trying to avoid having any responsibility, especially the obvious child support, then I don't think you're the jerk for taking this DNA test that isn't even directly from him. There's a legal precedent for a reason. This next story is, am I the jerk for leaving my clean menstrual cup by the kitchen sink? I, 25-year-old female, live in a basement suite with my cousin, 30-year-old male. We have our own separate rooms, but we share the kitchen, bathroom, and living space. We first started to have fights about the way I threw away my period pads. Usually, I wouldn't roll them up and just throw them into the shared garbage by the toilet, trying to face the blood side downwards. But according to my roommate, the pads would often end up with a bloody side up. We had a huge fight about it, and he asked me to buy a separate garbage can for anything of mine, period or non-period related. I refused to buy the garbage can, so he paid for it. And since we had an agreement that I would be doing all the house dishes and he would be taking care of all the garbages, I figured he would take out my special garbage can too. He did not. I wanted to stop fighting about this, so I eventually switched from using pads to using a menstrual cup. I figured that a menstrual cup will get rid of any period byproducts or garbage, so the issue would be effectively solved, right? No. Now we're fighting about my menstrual cup. Now, every time I take the cup out, 1 to 2 times a day, I wash it with soap twice, spending about 1 to 2 minutes just lathering it up with soap, making sure to clean the inside, the outside, the tail, and the suction holes before I reinsert it. I do this regardless of if I need to reinsert it right after or not. It's so clean that I can put the cup in my mouth and I taste nothing but plastic. But I still need to boil the cup to 100% complete the cleanse. Since I do have a tendency to procrastinate, I would usually leave the clean cup by the kitchen sink, as seeing it would remind me that I still have to boil it. But since anything that has been inside me is apparently disgusting, I start seeing a drinking mug being placed over my menstrual cup. Not too bad of a solution, but now I don't see the cup, so I forget about needing to boil it. So this devolves into my roommate hiding the menstrual cup under a drinking mug and me removing it every time we walk by the sink. I even put a note asking him to stop putting mugs over the cup, but he just ignores the note and hides it anyway. Now, this part I know I did not act in the most civil way possible, but I was so angry that I took out all of my dildos and placed them all over the kitchen. Each of them is clean, but there's one by the sink, one in the dish drying rack, and I fitted the menstrual cup over the faucet lever. I know that last part wasn't the best, but I'm just so tired of having to hide the fact that I'm a woman and have periods. Am I the jerk? I would say that OP is the jerk here. Clean or not, I think we can all agree that the kitchen counter is not a place to leave your menstrual cup, even if you wash that out with military-grade antibacterial cleanser. Whether you washed it or not, man or woman, the last thing you want to see when you're going to make your food is seeing a cup on the counter that is irregardless either having been inside you or going to be inside you very soon. I know it makes it easier for the whole boiling process, but at least leave the cup in the bathroom. And the last bit that OP did as retribution is definitely too much, especially around your male cousin. Like, why? In the dish drying rack? Our next story is, am I the jerk for calling out husband who punishes our teenager in order to ensure my good behavior? To be brief, my husband is going to Miami with a friend for a long weekend. I think this is great and supported the idea of this trip since the beginning. We have a 17-year-old daughter, his biological child, but I've been around since she was 5 years old. I love her to pieces. He told me tonight that he informed our daughter, Elisa, that she could not leave the house, nor stay overnight at any of her friends' houses while he's on vacation. This was news to me as well. He mentioned this at dinner with all of us in the same room. Understandably upset, Elisa asked why and what she had done to be punished. My husband said that she had done nothing, but she needed to be home the entire time because that was the only way he could trust that I would stay home as well. He said he didn't trust me not to stay out and party all weekend unless Elisa was home and I had to take care of her. My party days are long behind me, but he brings them up constantly, many years after the fact. Aside from the logic being incredibly flawed here, I'm frankly disturbed by the fact that he'll punish her and jam up her extended weekend as a tool to ensure I do what he wants me to do. I told him flat out I thought that what he did was unfair to Elisa and a little sick. He's now telling me it's my fault he had to resort to this because he can't trust me. Am I the jerk? 100% not the jerk. It's disgusting that he's using punishing her to be a glorified ball and chain so OP can't escape. I mean, what weird, disgusting, controlling behavior. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my dad's wife a joke that made her uncomfortable? My dad divorced my mom when my brother was 4, I was 3, and my sister was 1. He divorced my stepmother when my half-brother was 3 and my half-sister was 2. My dad is currently married to his 3rd wife, and they have one son who's 6. My grandmother really likes my dad's current wife, but she has a weird sense of humor. Most people in our family do. Sunday, my grandmother said to my dad's wife that she liked her so much that when they get divorced, she'll keep her and get rid of my dad. My dad's wife looked a little thrown by the comment and said she and my dad aren't getting divorced. I joked, "Of course not, you don't have a daughter." She stared at me and asked what I meant. I explained that my dad only divorces women when they have a daughter. That isn't the reason my parents divorced, it was just a joke about a coincidence. But she said it was a horrible thing to say about my sisters. My grandmother then joked that it was the opposite, because it implied my dad wanted daughters and only stayed with a woman long enough to get one. So long as she doesn't have another kid or only has sons, he'll stick around waiting for a girl. We both started laughing, and my dad's wife stared at us silently and then got up and left the room. At this point, I started to wonder if I crossed the line. My grandmother said I was fine, that she was just a sensitive person, and a little ribbing is good for her. Still, I do feel bad and wonder if I should apologize. Am I the jerk? Honestly, this lady kind of seems like she has a bit of a victim complex to me. Seems so quickly to be like, "That's not funny. Why are you making that joke? Are you trying to attack me or my partner's person?" I mean, if the shoe fits. There's so many kids I lost track just trying to read the intro to the story. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my brother he'll most likely never have twins? I, 23-year-old female, come from a family with a large amount of twins. I know, how very Reddit. I've always heard from family that apparently it's hereditary. I always thought it was BS until I did a bit of research and found out that fraternal twins can be hereditary, but only really for women and from the mother's side. My brother, 20-year-old male, seems to have clung on to that and thinks that he'll have twins when he has kids. He seems weirdly proud of it. I don't know why, having twins sounds like a nightmare. He was talking about it recently, and I told him that it's likely he'll never have twins, since it's only really hereditary for women. He took offense to that and had a little fit. My mom seems to think I should have kept my mouth shut and not burst his bubble. Am I the jerk? Yeah, I think this guy's kind of running without having tied their shoes beforehand. They're so quickly like, I'm going to have twins, it's going to be amazing. I mean, even if he did fall into the correlation of female on the mother's side, even then, it's a very rare statistic that it would even happen. Our next story is, am I the jerk for letting my in-laws have some of my special fudge and causing them to spend the weekend? My in-laws always tell stories about when they were young, how they went to Lollapalooza and Burning Man before it got all commercial. I like hearing their good old days stories. They're amusing. My favorite is how my father-in-law missed seeing Nirvana in some dive bar because he never heard of them. I make my own edibles and they're pretty strong. We don't have kids yet, so I'm okay just leaving them out with a warning sign for my wife. My edibles should carry a warning label, don't make any freaking plans for a while. My in-laws were over this weekend. They said they wanted to try my fudge. I said they're welcome, but that they should try just a quarter of one of my fudge pieces. That's what my wife usually takes. It's enough to have a great night but still be able to function the next day. My in-laws decided that they were old school cool and I was shining them on. They each took a full piece. That was Friday night. They didn't move from the couch until Saturday afternoon. They had plans that went sideways. I'm not sure how that's my fault. They literally took 4 times as much as I recommended. My wife is upset with me and so are my in-laws. They ended up staying until Sunday when they felt normal. I tried to explain that the cannabis I grow is stronger than whatever they're used to from the 90s, but I'm still in trouble. I think almost any time I've ever heard of somebody who had some experiences back in the day and then pretty much left it back in the day and then try something new nowadays have all pretty much had the reaction that whatever's going around nowadays is a lot more potent. I mean, not to mention that after all these years, they're basically starting fresh, so that probably hits them like a wall. I don't think any of this is OP's fault. They warned them and they suggested how much they should have. This next story is, am I the jerk for forcing sister-in-law to abide by my beliefs? I, 26-year-old female, and my husband, 31-year-old male, have a home with a guest room. His mom, 50-year-old female, has some pretty crappy beliefs, so his younger sister, 18-year-old female, hasn't been to school since first grade and doesn't know basic life skills. To give you an idea, she just learned how to shower by herself last year. 18-year-old female's gotten pretty fed up and decided to leave her mom and come live with us. My husband and I are fine with it, but implemented some basic rules, such as sister-in-law will study for her GED at least 3 hours a day. Sister-in-law has to clean up after herself, and sister-in-law will help make dinner, with help, 3 days a week. Once she's able to read basic English, sister-in-law will also study for her driver's license, and if she passes, we'll help her get a car. Mother-in-law is pissed that we're pushing our beliefs on sister-in-law and believes we're brainwashing her and forcing her into things she doesn't want to do. Sister-in-law always has the option to go home, but so far hasn't and has been following our rules well. Am I the jerk for pushing my beliefs on sister-in-law? Mother-in-law thinks I might be for treating sister-in-law like my daughter and forcing my beliefs on her, despite my beliefs being the exact opposite of her mom's. I'm sorry, but what beliefs has OP been pushing on her? How to shower by herself? How to read English? How to drive? Those are beliefs OP's pushing upon her? To get a GED because they haven't had any education in 18 years? OP's being a saint and helping this person have a life. The mother-in-law should be in jail for how stunted they allowed their kid to be. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister if she was my stepmom, I wouldn't name my kid after her either? My sister's been married to her husband Nigel for 21 years, and they've been together for about 23 years. Nigel was a widower of 3 years when he met my sister. His kids at the time of them meeting were 6-year-old female and 8-year-old male. Nigel's late wife's family was around a lot. My sister hated it. From the very early days, it was clear she was toxically jealous of Nigel's late wife and the kids' mom. She talked about how strange it was the kids, who didn't remember her, had her photo in their bedrooms. How her stepdaughter had a locket with a photo of her mom, dad, and brother in it. I remember back then asking how it was strange. Her mom was loved, and Nigel and his late wife's family likely didn't want the kids to not know that they were loved by their mom. She said that was her job now. I told her it wasn't healthy to feel that jealous and put out over a mom being remembered. Think of how she would feel if our mom died. Honestly, I had a lot of respect for Nigel for the first 2 or 3 years because his kids seemed to be his priority and he seemed to love and still care about his late wife and not want to erase her, but was also ready to be married to someone else. I had seen a lot of far more awful scenarios. But then he started letting my sister push herself onto the kids and try to force out their maternal relatives. It was very clear my sister blamed the maternal relatives for neither of her stepkids coming to think of her as their mom. She didn't want to hear any other reason it could be. Now both of her stepkids are adults, and her stepson became a father for the first time in January. His daughter is named after both her grandmothers, but his mom's name is her first name. My sister was so unhappy about that. She told him it was disrespectful to her and all that crap. He told her to go freak herself and told her she still hasn't figured out that she wasn't his mom, she wasn't his parent, she wasn't even his real family, because he would happily dump her out of his life for good and would never feel bad about that. My sister witched for weeks about it, and then I told her if I was her stepkid, I'd do the same. That she had no respect for his mom and had no respect for his maternal family. She freaked out and told me that it was a crappy thing to say and I should be on her side because she's my sister. Am I the jerk? 100% not the jerk. Even if OP was their own mom, they still wouldn't have the right to expect them to name their kid after them. Our next story is, am I the jerk for making my 12-year-old son take care of himself and his 10-year-old brother for a week? I came home about a month ago and caught my son yelling at his mom about his clothes. He was asking her how hard it was to make sure his clothes were cleaned. I took him to the laundry room and made him do laundry for the family. I taught him what clothes could go together and what should not. My wife is a teacher, and she works her butt off to make sure we have a nice home to live in. She tells me what she needs me to do and I take care of it. Beyond my share of the housework, I mean. Well, my kid needs to be punished, and I thought of the best possible way to do it. I'm sending my wife to Mexico with her school friends over spring break. I'm going to work from home that week and keep an eye on the kids. It won't be difficult because I'm putting the older one in charge of the younger one. He will be doing laundry, making breakfast and lunch for both of them, and making sure the kitchen and dining room stay clean. He said it's unfair to make him work over spring break. I asked him if he thought it was a full-time job to do all that I was expecting of him. He said yes, it was a full-time job. I pointed out that his mother and I both have full-time jobs and still managed to do everything that he was whining about. He tried to call my mom to see if he could stay there for spring break. She tried to tell me that I was being cruel to her poor baby. I asked her what exactly her and my father would have done to me if I had yelled at her for not doing my laundry. She said that it was a different time. I said he could stay with her if she was willing to tell him, in front of me, all the punishment I endured when I lived at home. She said he could not stay there. 100%, although this kid is going to complain and witch and moan, OP needs to follow out with this punishment and try to instill some sense of responsibility and at least capability to take care of themselves. They're gonna tell you in every way they can that they absolutely hate you now. But later down the road, hopefully they realize what you did was a good thing. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.